Hi, welcome to Inspiration Daily for January 3rd, 2022. I'm your host, Gina Greenlee of ginagreenlee.com. If you saw February 2nd's Inspiration Daily, you will understand why I'm wearing a mask. And if you didn't, I put the link to that Inspiration Daily yesterday's in today's transcript box. Today's inspiration is a quote from a woman who used to be my therapist. Uh, uh, I was in psychotherapy for 20 years because I had a very difficult childhood, and I realized in my early 30s that unless I dealt with that, I was not going to have the best life I could have. So I didn't know I was going into long-term therapy, but I began that journey, and I'm so grateful that I did. Any hootie waddy, so here's the quote. People understand behavior. Just noodle on that for a minute. She said this to me in the context of me going on about, I think it was, this was years ago, but this was, I don't remember. I want to say it had something to do about being in a relationship with a man, not in a relationship, but having interest in a man, and he was expressing interest in me. He was saying one thing and doing something else, and I'm trying to talk at him, trying to figure it all out. And she was just like, people understand behavior. So, and she began to deconstruct some of the behaviors that I was engaging in when engaging this gentleman. And she would say, so, you know, if you really are done, when you see him, when you run into him, don't be asking about his mama. Like, how's your mom doing? Just people understand you don't have to, you know, do all the flapping of the gums. Your behavior speaks volumes. And I began to really think about that, and not just in relationship and not just in connection to my um, engagement with this gentleman, but I began to look at it in all of my relationships, familial, professional, with friends. And I began to understand how my behavior would often belie what it was I said I wanted in these relationships. So that was huge. So just something to ponder. People understand behavior. What comes to mind, and I usually don't spend too much time talking about popular culture, but I remember um, I never I saw my television in 1990, so there's a whole swath of popular culture that arose from television shows over the last, 30 years that I really don't have a frame of reference for. And one such show is Sex in the City. I knew women who really liked that show, and I would be over at their house at times and I would watch it with them. And I enjoyed the episodes when we watched them, and we would have our cosmopolitans and, get toasted and laugh ourselves silly. But generally speaking, I didn't have a television, and the streaming thing wasn't a thing yet. So, and even now that it is, I mean, I don't watch television that way. So, but I do remember an episode that had a lot of, that was prominent in the popular culture. And it was, He's Not That Into You. And then it sparked a book and all this kind of thing. And the connection to this inspiration daily of what my therapist said, people understand behavior, right? So in the show, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, and you probably are because I'm probably the only one who didn't know, um, women really do spend a lot of time, well, how come he didn't call me and this and that and that, and trying to dissect what somebody said in a phone call, a phone message, or these days a text. And here's the bottom line. If he didn't call you, or wondering why he didn't call, or wonder why, if he didn't call, he's just not that into you. And that is the truth. And I think uh, there's probably, I'm sure a lot of people have opined on why that was such a cultural thing. I don't know if lightning rod is the right term, but behavior says everything. I don't care how sweet he was to you the last time he saw him, how much money he spent on you, how good the sex was. If he ain't called, he's just not that into you. Behavior says it all. And you know, when you look at it from the outside, right, and looking at a television show or looking at somebody else's life, it makes perfect sense. But when you apply it to your own life, your mind goes and that's what my mind did. And when my therapist said that to me. So something to ponder. People understand behavior. So if you're dealing with something, if you're engaged in some, some kind of relationship, whatever it happens to be, it could be mentor, mentee, boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, boss, employee, peer to peer in the office. And if there's a dynamic that's not working for you, it's so easy to point to somebody else's behavior and then to start ruminating on why and trying to analyze them and deconstruct. No, look at your own behavior. You're experiencing what you're experiencing because of in part, because of the behavior you're bringing to the dynamic. My mind went when she said that. I don't know if your mind's going to do that, but I share it in the spirit of today's inspiration. Thanks for joining me.